Welcome to the discussion panel, recruiting and getting into the 3D industries in the age of AI. So in the previous talks, we've heard quite a lot about AI, so I don't know if we should talk about so much about this, because it's almost everywhere in every program and everybody's using it, but we will try to figure out some special points for that. But there are a lot of other interesting points we can discuss about. But first of all, thanks to you, to you panelists and all listeners who have the opportunity to ask questions later. So thanks for being here with us. And at the beginning, I think it would be okay if we have a short, briefly introduction from everybody of you, so that our audience is knowing who they are dealing with. So maybe Tiffany, you could start.
Sure. Hi, my name is Tiffany Feeney. I'm a recruiter, and my company is based in Zurich, Switzerland. So almost like the hub of where this event is. And while I'm American, I've been living in Switzerland for the last 8 years, and we help out different animation and visual effects studios, from commercial projects to television projects, as well as unique content development studios find talent for their projects. So whether it's executive placement all the way to general crewing. And a little bit about my background is I actually studied computer graphics. So I think I'm probably one of the few people that actually had to also do C++ programming in their schooling too. And so I studied computer graphics, and I have my master's degree in design management, which really dovetails into my experience and how I help studios. And then also for myself, of working in-house, I worked in New York City with the commercial studios for a number of years as a freelance recruiter, DreamWorks, Zynga, and while here in Switzerland with Google in their computer vision and machine learning divisions as well. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay, thank you. Rachel, maybe you?
Hi everybody, I'm Rochelle Lewis. I'm the president and founder of RLT. We were the pioneering recruitment company back in the early 2000s, before anybody else did this, for animation and visual effects, when productions needed senior artists, technicians, supervisors, directors, et cetera, we became the place that people come to for help. And we still do that today, have a really cool team of very fierce women, all who have sat in executive positions at various Hollywood studios. So we bring a lot of heft to the table for our clients. I came into animation in the late 90s. I actually started working in television animation. And now you're going to all know how old I am, but I ran artistic recruitment for Classic Chupo, which was at the time like the fat and sassy, Hollywood studio that everybody wanted to work at in LA. And they did Rugrats and Wild Thornberrys and all that. And they kind of revolutionized the TV animation industry. I then was recruited by DreamWorks. I went over there as a senior recruiter, did a lot of movies with them. That was awesome. I then was recruited by Sony Pictures Imageworks. I worked with them only in animation, and then they pulled me into visual effects. So that's how I ended up splitting my brain between these two industries. And then I ran recruitment for Digital Domain. And then I started my own company. So yeah. We know a lot about animation, both in the episodic and feature space, which is very, very different than creature pipelines and, say, visual effects. We do it all, and we love it. And I don't know what else I would do in this world. I love my people. We love our artists. We love our technicians. We love making everybody communicate and play well together. So that's who I am, and I hope I can shed some light on how to get into the business and what to do when you get in.
Okay, thank you. Christina.
So then I take over. Hi, I'm Christina. I'm the managing director of Trixter. Trixter is one of the leading visual effects companies in Europe. So we are mainly working for international clients like Marvel, Disney, and Warner. And the studios you heard about before already from my lovely panelist colleagues. Besides this, we're of course also working for the streaming vendors, the well-known ones. We're currently having approximately 250 people in-house meaning at Trixter, not in-house in the studio anymore. But I think this is a point we will come to later. Before joining Trixter as a managing director, I was managing director of Dark Bay. This was the stage, also based in Germany. We did some Netflix episodics there and some international features, but there I worked with only 8 people on set, which was quite different and quite a different challenge to get them on board for this specific case. Before getting into this managing director thingy, I worked a lot in HR, so this is part of my background, while also coming from somehow through the whole media industry, from broadcast to feature to somehow post. I do not know why I ended up there. I think they are the craziest people, so this is why we're all here. That's me in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you. It's very, very impressive what you've all done before. Some few words about me, why I'm here. I worked as an artist for many, many years, more in the television and commercial area. And since, I don't know how exactly, 10, 12 years, I'm a professor at the Media Design University based in Munich. The program is Digital Film Design, Animation, and Visual Effects. And that's the reason, because recruiting is always very, very important, because our students have to do an internship. Christina knows some
Yes.
of our students, and a lot of students are working at Trixter. That's really, really great. And some of your senior artists are also lecturers at our university. That's really great, a great cooperation between education and professional studios. And yeah, all students want to know how to get jobs in the bigger studios. What rules are there? What do I have to think of when I'm writing a letter or go to a conference? How can I get into touch with the studios? And maybe we can figure out some of these topics. But I would like to start with not with AI, but with the topic of home office, because the Corona pandemic, the companies had to switch to home office. This is something that might have been impossible some years before because of a lot of legal reasons. But now in the focus, or from an employee side, and maybe you have heard some things from your clients, Tiffany and Raquel.
I think you got muted,
No,
Thomas.
we can't hear you. Can you guys hear Thomas?
No.
No.
Nice to
Thomas,
meet
you just
Hello,
broke
hello.
out for about 15 seconds.
I think
you're back now, Thomas. If you repeat
okay.
your question, then we can
I
help.
was gone somewhere. What was the last you've heard?
You were prefacing about, home office and the change because of the pandemic and for the clients that we were working with, and then after that, we don't know.
So can I repeat the question? So what are the experiences of the companies, and how does this affect the workplace of the future?
Yeah.
Well, can I jump in here real quick on something?
Yeah, I think that Rochelle and I would
cut me off, because I will you're gonna have to grab the mic. So the only thing the thing about this, when we were talking about when we got the questions about what this panel could discuss, one of the things was, because everybody talks about workplaces of the future. I think any company that's trying to force people to come back in and not offer a hybrid workplace after people. It's not as simple, oh, it's going to be this or it's going to be that. But I don't think that any companies that are choosing to force their staff to come back in full time on premises, I don't think they're making a wise decision. They're going to be losing talent. And I don't see a lot of people doing this, but some of the ones that are doing it, some of the bigger facilities, you know, Apple, Disney, they're having to readjust their thinking on this, and they are going to continue to readjust their thinking on this. But the big thing that was the question that was posed to us, Tiffany and Christina, was the mental health issue, which I found really, really interesting, because in the last 4 years, when we talk with our CG soups or our heads of productions or heads of studios or whatever, we kind of do this soft, hey, you know, how are you mitigating this mental health issue? Because since everybody works at home, I mean, we all came up in the studios. We had the water cooler talk, you know, we got lunch together, we had the coffee room. How you don't have that anymore. And one of the things, the bottom line that always comes up is in animation or visual effects, your supervisor, you always have a one-on-one with your supervisor, right? You're always going through your shots with your supervisor. And that's like a great time for the supervisor to be trained by HR or just be told, you need to connect with these people on a human level, because they're sitting in their home office all day. They're disconnected. So that's the opportunity. And what it does is it makes people feel like they're part of the team. And if they are struggling with mental health issues, now you've created this kind of bond with them, so they feel like they can talk to their supervisor and it's not going to be taken as strange. And we've seen that across the board, that better run facilities are instituting this. So I think that's the mental health issue of working at home is a big deal. And I think that's a really great way to train our younger supervisors. Hey, you need to take this opportunity to also ask them about themselves. Is their sick dog okay? You heard their wife had her tonsils out, whatever. Get the human connection. That was my rant on the mental health thing, by the way. So yeah.
Well, and to add to that, I think that for, you know, for facilities and kind of, I always kind of described it as like our pendulums were kind of swinging in one extreme to the other. You know, we were 100% in the studio, and then during COVID, we were 100% at home. And now this pendulum's kind of landing somewhere in between. And the definition of that in between, I do find that it is a little bit different from continent to continent. And so for here in Europe, and I think that one, for working remotely and being open for our pipelines, our pipeline latency, to be able to go and log into the pipeline and being able to work in a real-time frame manner without, you know, having some technical downtimes. Those opportunities here in Europe are still staying. But when we got to go and stretch across the ocean and cable lines, this is the learning lessons for many studios, that they're like, we can do it. There's latency. We're having to manage around all of these time zones. So the time zone factor coming into like plus minus 2 hours within this time zone is being instituted, even though us as studios, they've figured out how to go and bring on employees remotely. Artists have figured out how to go and set up their contracts to work freelance and what that means wherever they are for their taxation XYZ. And now the focus is, as I agree with Michelle, is kind of like, what is the team dynamic? And what is the team dynamic to best support the show, to best support the artists, their communication? What do they need? And that also helps benefit the studio. And what I've been seeing with our clients is much more hybrid, if they are regional. And so even if it's just coming into the studio 1 day a week, and the other policy is going and being implemented, that when I was visiting my client studios earlier this year, it was just super fascinating walking in, and those that were like, pick whatever day you want to come, and you're like seeing, you know, a little dust bunny go by, like a slow Western, that you're like, there's 3 people over there in the corner trying to find each other to make a community, versus the studios actually said, you know what, this team always comes in on this day. And when you came into that studio, you actually felt like you had a purpose in a community, and that they were really thriving because they knew that that was their day to go and bond. And then these other days were their flexible days. And so just, walking in to these different studios, trying to navigate this and try on different themes. When you're in those spaces, you really see a very, very different bond. And I'm so curious what you have to say, Christina, because you've, Trickster's gone completely, really open to remote employees coming on board for the long haul.
Exactly. So it's, but basically I can second and summarize what you both said. So it's like, for us, it has opened a really new and additional market of artists that was great to have, because it's actually, in the end, it's all about talent and not about getting a German tax credit. So we're happy to hire people from all around the world if it fits somehow in exactly the working hours we're having, so that they can connect somehow with the with our supervisors. So that's really helpful. A, B, our offices were never made for more than 200, 220 people. And we were able to grow even like over 300 people now, because we did not need the physical working spaces anymore. So these are really great opportunities that came with it. And of course, we're feeling the same. How can we connect exactly the people now again, that they feel somehow we're one team? So what we're doing is, of course, having still social events in both our facilities in Berlin and Munich, saying like, hey, once a week you get drinks and food. So it's the classical pizza and beer thingy. That still works perfectly, actually, because a lot of people like to come in then. Plus, we're having like, when it's crunch time, it's good to have the core team in-house, because what we're absolutely also facing is communication topics. You can way easier communicate when you go through a studio and look over each other's shoulders and say, hey, this might not be right what you're doing, or it would be easier if you do certain things differently. And this is, of course, not working now anymore. So you always have to book a meeting, jump into someone's machine, look over someone's shoulder virtually, and this always takes way more time. So there is not only a latency in, like, because of the Wi-Fi connection, but also in the way of communicating and working. And of course, we have like what we haven't done before, where we have like physical introductions, in-person introductions. We're now having so amazing documentation of everything, which gives also an advantage, I have to say. But of course, and in order to talking about the mental health topic, so we're having exactly this one-to-ones, but I sometimes feel it's easier for colleagues who do not want to talk about their potential not feeling good or mental health problems. It's easier for them to hide. And I would love to connect them, of course, even more, and not make them sit in their room and start thinking about so many things. So we're also like having like mental health programs where we say like, okay, let's do, starting from simple yoga, online yoga, where you can start connecting breathing, and also offering like sessions with a third party person to talk to, just opening it. And I think this has helped a lot also to keep the communication about mental health open, and not saying this is a topic on the side where certain people might also feel like difficult or have difficulties to talk about. But in general, I have to say this hybrid working model or remote working model works great for us, has opened new opportunities, has also opened the talk with the studios way more, but there are hurdles depending on the people where we as a company want to overcome them, but it's quite challenging to address every person differently.
It is. I think it's just about having that banter, and it can be even something where it can be even something where you have a Slack channel that's just for like, hey, water cooler talk, and younger people may be like, what is a water cooler? What the hell is she talking about? But you know what I mean? Having something like that where it's just a banter place where they can kind of do this. I know that like some of my clients that are game companies during COVID, they said, okay, we're going to pay you now to play games. I mean, it was kind of ridiculous. I'm jealous. So they would say, at the end of the day, we're going to end an hour early, and we're going to get on these teams, and we're going to play games. We're going to play our competitors' games. It was kind of fascinating to watch that. Yeah, And they did that not because they wanted to pay everybody to play games. They did it because they realized people are going to start to get depressed, feel isolated. What can we do? Let's do that. So I'm seeing this, but I think it's all about keeping the banter. There's just no bullpen time anymore. That's the only downside to remote working that I see. And Tiffany's absolutely right when she's talking about people being concerned. You know, producers are concerned about, we all the time, you know, we work with companies all over the world. So they'll say, okay, well, a company in France, what time zones are you open to for remote workers? And oftentimes they'll say, well, we need to have people, you know, if it's a client in New York, they'll say we need them to be available to be on in core Eastern time zone hours. So that, you know, if somebody is a real early bird in California, they can pull that job off. But if they're not a morning person, they shouldn't take the gig, right? Yeah, I think it's all about.
But I will add, as a downside of remote work, is that people's boundaries around their personal time versus their work time has begun to erode. And we have seen, you know, when we're talking with candidates about opportunities, it's one of those most important pieces that they're just like, is there an end time? Because where I'm working now, I'm expected to like go have dinner with my family, then come back online and to go and deliver the show. Or, you know, I spoke with someone yesterday, they're like, I got home, but like I stopped working at 2 a.m. And, you know, that to me is like a really, you know, a massive red flag, right? And I was just like, how long is this going on for? And so I think, again, where we have these remote working, people working across time zones, and how important it is that the studio defines what is normal and really supporting their employees to have those clear boundaries in place. And also, you know, talking with candidates about, like in this particular case, like she's wrapping up her project, she's going looking for her next show. And we, you know, specifically discussed around like what questions she can ask to kind of tease out what that work culture is. Because I think that that's the thing that when you go into the interview, everyone's like, well, you know, you got to do what you got to do for crunch. But is it a studio that kind of always feels 100% in crunch? Like,
are you
did
always
they ever manage their shows? Yeah. And so that's a piece that, you know, is a downside that I would say from remote working versus being in the studio is like, when you leave a studio, like you knew which teams were in crunch, but if you were a team not on crunch, you were like, have fun, enjoy your dinner, like, and it was completely fine for you to moonwalk out of the studio and when it became a dead zone. But for remote work, I think that that's been the other absolutely fascinating part during COVID of talking with different teams as to when they see like the renders get pushed to the farm at what times, right? And they're just like, whoa, like everybody's schedule is just being zhuzhed up. And we're, you know, I kind of described it's like, you know, during the pandemic, it's like, if the artists or the animals can go wherever they want to go, where do they want to go? And what is their natural habitat and their natural like time zone hours? And that's what we got to witness during COVID versus these business constructs of being like a 9 to 5, a 9 to 6 business. This is when we do work versus my personal time. Everybody was allowed to free range roam.
I think it comes back to really good production management and really good executive management who's not tuned out to this stuff, because in our respective businesses, visual effects, animation, right, there are ways to set milestones for people. And unless they are the individuals that need to be given a lot of direction, maybe they're juniors and they need a lot of mentoring. If they're a more senior person, they should be able to get their milestones and figure out their own schedule for themselves and hit those milestones. And that's where these, you know, that's where these stand-up meetings, I think, are becoming more and more common, where they didn't used to have stand-up meetings every single day for these smaller productions. They didn't do it. They're starting to do it because it's a way for them to mitigate, like, okay, John, we don't care if you know, if you're gone for 4 hours during the day, but by the stand-up meeting tomorrow morning, you have to have this work done. So
that's
I'm
exactly
that being instituted. Yeah.
Absolutely. This goes in the direction we're, for example, working. So overtime, sorry, has anyhow to get approved upfront. And it's something according to German labor law where you anyhow have a different, so you can't work like unlimited hours. Otherwise, you're as a company really screwed up. So this is the concept. So get your work done, do it within the hours that you're paid for. If you need more hours, or if your work takes longer, it's later delivered for blah, 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 whatever reason, the client, the crunch time, I don't know, let's talk about it. But nothing like can be decided or should be decided by an individual artist, but by the departments, in order to keep exactly this overview of like, hey, this person should not work 24/7.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, you see, of course, also then in F-Track, luckily we're using F-Track, when a person has logged in after the working hours, again, without logging time on it, but I'm just checking for 3 hours during night if, as you said, my render goes through, my, I don't know, whatever my other artists have done. If this has happened frequently, we can still see it and we can do something again. So it's really about this, also to prevent the people themselves.
Yeah, because some people may go, well, I got a blog, I'm going to go and put my hours in for the day. And you can going on at 11 o'clock at night, and you're like, but they're only putting their hours in until like 7. And you say, well, you know, Mary, that's great. Are you working till 11 o'clock at night? Because we don't want you to burn out. Oh, no. I just do that before I go to bed. I go, you know, we've had to coach people and say, don't do that. Like, put your office somewhere where you can hopefully like close a door or have some sort of curtain or something where if you can know that you're leaving for the day. It's been a trip for everybody. I mean, it's been very difficult for producers. Frankly, you know, having banged the drum, and I'm sure that, you know, Christina, you and Tiffany had done this as well. For years, it was so frustrating because we would have these amazing artists and we couldn't use them because, you know, we couldn't immigrate them. We couldn't, you know, blah, 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 blah. We couldn't get them. And finally, I think with COVID, as horrible as it was, that was a really good thing that happened. It forced the industry, which had previously been like, absolutely not. We will never let people work from home. The data breach is too huge. Somebody's going to steal our picture of Spider-Man. Oh my God. You know, so before, no, it was insane. Marvel letting people work from home. Are you smoking crack? So it forced the studios to, you know, come to Jesus a little bit and say, well, okay, we can put in all kinds of safeguards for cyber security, blah, 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 blah. We don't have a choice. So it kind of forced the industry to do this. And I think that's a really good thing, because having seen people move and having to live like nomads for years, where they have to move to Vancouver, they have to move to LA, they have to move to wherever, I don't see that as much. There's still a lot of places that are saying, well, this is a key role. We really need them to be in the studio. They have to be in Barcelona. They have to be in Beijing, whatever, but not as many. And I think that's wonderful. It's wonderful for me as a recruiter, because I can finally go, remember that incredible concept artist that's in Brazil?
Yeah, so
you know,
if we can say, there are, for me, 2 big learnings out of the pandemic. The first is that human beings, like we are, needed to be forced sometimes to go the next step. So our industry and many other industries have learned how to deal with teams that are a mixture of on-site and off-site, and it works. Everybody sees the advantages. Another learning was that even today, that when the people are working too much for themselves in the home office, these mental health issues, problems are growing and growing. But the advantage of that is that, or the advantage of the growing number of these people that have these problems, is that everybody is aware of it. So everybody has heard of it. It's nothing special. It's nothing you have to be ashamed of, because everybody knows somebody who has problems. So if you have the problem, you can talk about it, and there's a lot of support you can get to learn how to deal with it. So this is yeah, a plus and a minus at the same time for that. So now let's come to the next point, and now I would try to talk about artificial intelligence maybe in another way, because that it makes sense and that it's used. We've heard today so many times. What I'm interested in is, because I have many times discussions with students and other professionals I meet from time to time. What is your feeling? Do the people have more fear of this technology, or see the people more the possibilities as artists, that they get new tools to be faster and better? What are your experiences here?
You guys want to start? You want
Maybe
me?
Christina, you are looking so that.
Okay, I can, if you want, I can start. So from my perspective, it depends on the departments they are working in. So for example, our concept department has, of course, more thoughts about this than, for example, our roto and paint department. So this having said, it's a matter of how these tools get used. I'm saying this because from a studio perspective right now, we can't use any tools that are publicly pushed and somewhere produced according to AI. No build generating, no word generating, nothing. It's absolutely not usable for us because the copyright is not yet defined. So this is something where we can say it can theoretically be used to give more inspiration to the people, for example, talking for concept departments, where they can say, okay, I need to create a certain character, so I can type in some words and get like out of some of the AI tools available, some ideas how my concept could look like. But then they still will and have to create their own images out of that. So it can be a different way to get inspiration or to get new ideas they might not have thought before of. And on the other hand, talking about roto paint and other departments, it's not the technology is not yet there, but of course we could get faster for certain tasks. It still needs the human factor, so we will always need a supervisor to control whatever runs through AI and through any of these tools, and it will always also need certain people inputting this data. So it's nothing like, it can be something in between to ease the workflow, I have to admit. But therefore, we're currently also writing our own tools, because as we don't know how this will move forward with any open source or any other tools, we're here using our own technology at the moment. Also talking about AI, deepfake, and machine learning, this is something that goes in a similar direction, where it's now, I mean, the strikes are over of the actors and the script writers. Luckily, hey, that was really cool. But I think there are also things, or we have to differentiate a lot about what we're talking here. I mean, when we're talking replacing a stunt double with an actor, this has happened like for ages. This is what we do like forever. So actors get scanned and then they do not do their stunts, and then we're replacing their faces or their bodies with the stunt doubles. So this is, I think the fear of people come from a different perspective of getting replaced, and this is, I think, will never be the case. It just gives, AI just gives another layer to whatever can be done and what potentially can be done faster in the future. So it speeds up certain processes, but it still always will need a human factor, and AI can only be as good as it gets trained from a human being.
Yeah.
So,
Well, AI, it's like talking to a brilliant 4-year-old.
yes,
You know, it's
I
like
like
a
this.
brilliant, but it's a 4-year-old. For those of you who have raised children, you know what I speak. So that's kind of my analogy of AI. And I just don't think there's still going to be subtleties that AI is not, even if you have the most amazing brain builders and you have all of this, it's still going to need the human touch. That just, you know, algorithms can't make, they can't make conceptual, non-linear connections that humans can. And so I think the jobs are going to change as far as how we, with AI coming in. I don't think AI is going to replace everyone. I know that a few moments have happened recently where some major people in the industry, Jeffrey Katzenberg, have said some things that are, you know, really scary. And it's like, oh, please don't say that. Not everybody's going to be replaced in 3 years by AI. I think that was just, I think AI is going
He's
to be.
been wrong about other things in the past.
Yeah, really? No.
We all own televisions, right? We all got that because that's where we were going. It was going to save us.
Yeah, but I don't think it's, I think that the future relationship is going to involve, I think there's going to be a relationship between human artists and AI. But, you know, for me sitting here, I think that we need to look at the legislation. I think this needs to be regulated. I don't think that the people that were creating this really ever did it so that they could make sure they didn't think, well, my colleague isn't going to have grocery money. They didn't create it for that. It needs to be regulated, and we need to think about how we're utilizing it and do so that it helps human beings and not hurts human beings. But as far as what we all do, which is super creative and human collaboration, AI is going to be a tool. It's not going to replace it if we make sure that we don't allow them to.
Yeah. How I kind of describe it is from when we got from graphic design, right? You kind of were doing pre-press with the vellum, you know, your X-Acto knife kind of cutting out and doing this typesetting, and then we went into Photoshop. And so for those individuals that were, you know, completely skilled in this older methodology for press, and they didn't make that transition to Photoshop and kind of doing digital pre-press, they felt the pain of that technology and not making that transition. And I think that for AI coming into our studios, completely what Christina's saying, like we've had versions of generative and AI kind of within our pipelines, right? And, you know, we can even think back to the film Klaus and how the lighting and the coloring and just the going and doing computer vision, recognizing of line and kind of doing color fills, and then how the artists went and adjusted those color shading, right? There's a logic system behind that tool that was already assisting the artists. Now we're at like I would say an unprecedented scale of assistance, almost over assistance that you're just like, no, can you just stop there? And I think the other piece is that, you know, to the untrained eye, and for people that are not creative and trying to use these tools, they're completely amazed, right? They're like unlocking this creativity or that their idea is being visualized. But the truth of it is that I think that with AI and where that quality of art is, if you're an artist and if AI is kind of performing above the bar than maybe your own artwork is, you're going to feel the pinch of AI because the bar is being set someplace else within our industry than where it has currently been. And I also think that within studios of developing AI tools, it all does come back to the data set. And it comes back to the ownership of the data set and the authenticity of the data set for what the output is. And that's a piece that within these larger networks is that you can't control the algorithm to then go and make that one little tweak as to whatever it needs to do, which is exactly what your supervisor wants you to change those 3 pixels that look a little weird on this one highlight. And I had this conversation yesterday with, I gave a talk at a school in the UK, and we were pre-chatting before the talk, and the moderator was saying, he goes, you know what, I'm still having to like pick out like where the street lights are in the Captura. Like, is AI really that smart? And he was like, I think we're fine. And then I just kind of was like, so I worked for Google. You're actually training the data set, and you've been doing this for like the past decade for, you know, Google Maps, for, you know, Google Earth, all of these pieces. I was like, I'm sorry. And he goes, no, like I've been feeding into AI by just proving that I'm a human. And I'm like, yes, I'm sorry. But there's, you know, this whole other subsection of our 3D industry that is actually, you know, about procedural content. And so going and making really large, pure data sets to go and train computer vision and machine learning algorithms. And I find that super fascinating. And I think that that's been an area that's had, you know, a lot of growth before these AI engines kind of became publicly released. And then this past year, they've been a little bit stagnant because they're just like, oh no, is this, you know, generative AI taking over what we had as the idea of giving a clean, pure set? And now it's kind of starting to get its momentum again, because everyone's like, what Rochelle was saying, it's a 4-year-old. And they're like, oh, that got a little bit weird. We need to keep the clean data set. And so that's a really, I think, a fascinating area of AI, and to how do you harness it in a really smart and intelligent way. And again, you going and keeping control over the Frankenstein machine that it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Absolutely. I was just like also adding to that one, for example, I think AI will help, for example, our pipeline engineers at a certain point to generate faster code, but they need to have a base to understand how C++ whatsoever works. So if I would type something in, I would say, oh, this must be amazing. But you, Tiffany, you would say like, what? It doesn't make any sense
The
at
thing
all.
of it is that if it's a good engineer, they're like, it technically works. You could have written in 4 lines instead of 20. Like, you're kind of a bit verbose, which is what I think most of all of our experiences have been of just testing with ChatGPT. You're like, that's a lot of hand waving to say no. Okay.
Exactly. So I think it can get supportive here and there in the future, but you still need to have a basic knowledge of something.
mm-hmm.
Sorry, where I find, for example, when we're talking image creation, I just tried yesterday and put in person cooking in the kitchen. You always get a wife, 25-year-old woman in a kitchen. So you always get the stereotypes, or you get like basketball player. They will always look the same. So there is no diversity at all in these image creations. So you need the human touch to make it diverse, to make it like how our society is. Otherwise, you get the images that they are trained with.
It just requires the human touch. I mean, it's always going to require the human touch. A million years ago in the 70s, when in the music industry, I remember I wasn't born yet, but in the music industry, so MIDI was coming in, right, and synthesizers, right? And I remember being in music class, like in 5th grade, and the teacher talking about like, oh, you know, it's there's no use in studying instruments anymore. She's having a bad, no use in studying your instruments anymore. They're just you can buy a synthesizer, and, you know, and it was really terrible. And for about 2 years there, a lot of highly trained musicians were leaving the industry and or the earth. It was bad. And then, you know, of course, does anybody go? No, I mean, we all still go to symphonies. Musicians are needed. There's a very big difference between somebody playing a cello in front of you and somebody playing a cello on a synthesizer. Then fast forward, you know, to when I started working in the animation industry, there was no CG, didn't exist yet. And when, you know, Pixar came out, we were just, I remember going to the theater and going, oh my God. And going back to the studio, and this was when I was at Klasky Csupo, and a lot of the people that were doing the movies there were like, we're not going to have a career. We're screwed. What are we going to do? We don't know how to do this. I'm like, okay, boys and girls, let's not all have a complete meltdown. They're using a software. you're going to have to learn this software. But, you know, think about it, like just with animation, it still exists today. You still need a really, really, really good animator. Maya is just a very expensive pencil. That's all it is. You still need a really good animator who can make that character have emotion. Because yeah, Maya can make something walk to a mailbox, but can it make it walk to a mailbox holding an envelope from somebody that just broke up with them and they're really, really sad and they're mailing no. So I think that with AI, it's a little bit more than that, because it does need to be legislated. It does need to be controlled so it's not hurting people and their ability to make a living. But I just think it's going to be a really rough couple of 2-3 years of people like realizing AI is not necessarily my enemy. I shouldn't be terrified, and I should probably learn about it so that I know how to utilize it and I can be ahead of this. Because back when the animators from 2D to CG, the people who just were like, okay, I'm done, I can't do this anymore, they're not in the industry anymore. You know, they were so terrified of having to get on a computer and use Maya. They didn't want to do that. They wanted to draw. And I understand that. That was really hard. I wouldn't have wanted to do it either. But the ones that made that jump, well, you know, and there's some of the big ones in the industry. James Baxter, I mean, we're talking the kings. They had to do that. James didn't want to get on a computer. Come on. So I just think it's going to be an interesting couple of years. And AI, I think there's going to be some lawsuits. And I think that legislation is going to
cannot wait.
I can't wait either. And
I'm like, please bring the boundaries. Yay.
Yeah, we need it. That's the key with AI. And then I think it's just kind of helping people understand what are these tools for your respective career and what you do, and what should you learn so that maybe you're not so afraid of it, you know?
Yeah.
And you can kind of like it, and then you know how to talk to it. Brilliant 4-year-old, you know how to talk to the brilliant 4-year-old. Now you have a little more job security because you know how to utilize AI. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I agree. And I think from a legislation point of view, you know, we're getting stronger clarity on our copyright laws. We're getting our stronger clarity of, you know, impersonating a human, right? Like we got Scarlett Johansson and Tom Hanks going and having their images used against their permission. And so these are these fine nuances that we didn't have technology that could exploit in this way before legislation could go and catch up. And I fully understand, you know, there's kind of this gray zone within AI in that, you know, us as humans and as artists, if you're going and you're taking a look at artwork and you're creating something out of inspiration, you're okay to do that. But like, how does this work in this black box of a machine? And then how this image comes out? And again, where the permissions and the copyright components to it. I find it a completely fascinating topic in conversation as to these little nuances coming in and where the opinions are coming forward, you know, between the US and here in the EU, of how they're trying to navigate this and define the new uses and definitions around this. I'm with Rochelle. I'm like, if it's only 2-3 years, we'll see. But I do think we're going to get an onslaught of really, really crappy content from AI, and it's just sifting through a lot of crap.
Well,
but
it's
I also,
already,
you know, just
it's
remind
already
people
out
it's
there.
like YouTube. Yeah, it's just like YouTube.
You see that?
Yeah,
thing,
I would say that these were perfect conclusions about AI, and so maybe we should close this topic, because there will be so many more discussions about this topic in the next years. And I think it will not be 2, 3, 4 years. It will take us many, many more years, because there will be so many new developments. And it's great to see. It's the technology, the innovation, so we have to deal with it. And but now I would like to come back to us, to human beings, and the skills the human beings as artists need to bring with for a studio to be a good employee. And for sure, you need to know your your work, your hard skills. So you need to know how to use the software, you need to know how to animate or how to do composite things. But I would like to talk about the soft skills. And what do you think, how important is it to really have a good understanding of soft skills to get a job as a newbie, as an artist, and how important is it to have soft skills for seniors and for employees that don't want to get fired, maybe because
Well, I hope that's not
of
your
a lack of soft skills.
Incredibly
So
important.
what is your
They're
experience?
not hiring when studios or when productions are hiring somebody, they're not hiring a skill set. They're hiring a human being that brings the skill set. This drives me personally bananas because I'm old. So when I talk with people and they don't know, I like, we're getting on a Zoom with them and we're talking with them and they just sit there staring. Hello, are you, so communication. And this needs to come back in a very big way because people need to talk to each other, not texting. Talk to each other, communicate with your mouths. Like you say to the 4-year-old, use your words. But I think soft skills are one of the most important things because in visual effects and animation, hugely collaborative art forms. This is massively collaborative, and you've got to play well with others. You have to be able to take constructive criticism. And if you are a junior person coming in, you don't have a lot of experience, you don't need to be a doormat, but you also need to check your ego a little bit because you are sitting with other people who have put their time in. They've been on the front line. They have their awards, which they earned. So you need to kind of be quiet and listen and learn and, check yourself a little bit because I've seen a lot of people hurt their careers terribly because they come in with a massive ego, and even though they may be really, really good at what they do, it gets around that they're like not fun to work with, and that will hurt you. And in our industries, animation and visual effects, everything is like production driven, right? So you may be a senior on this show over here, but then the industry changes, whatever. Well, now they're going to put you as a lead. Just because you've been a lead doesn't mean that you're always going to be a lead. You may have to go take a job as a senior again because there's not that many lead positions. So soft skills, be kind to people on your way up and your way down and in this rocky boat that we're in, because it's all about who you are and how you treat other people that you work with. People will always remember how you made them feel. If they remember anything about you, they'll remember that, how you made them feel. And that would be my advice to anybody, regardless of junior, mid, or senior, or executive, or whatever. How do you make people feel?
Yeah, I think that oftentimes when I'm talking with students, when we go and we talk about soft skills, right, it's this big ambiguous term, and they're like, what do you mean by soft skills? And you're like, what do you mean you don't know what soft skills are? And so as Rochelle had said, it's communicating. It's going and evaluating and giving like direct and indirect feedback, and that may go in really vulture, or I'm going to say it might vary based on your culture. It's about, how you persuade, right? Like, how do you kind of pitch an idea, bring someone over to your side, or you're in support of another individual in those persuasion points. It's about leading, right? And you don't need to have the title to lead. You need to lead through your actions and actually kind of garner support. And I think that that's something that leading doesn't come from someone bestowing you the supervisor title. It's about influence. And those are pieces that you can still go and demonstrate some of those soft skills. Trusting, how do you confront, right? We have very different cultures of how you go and you confront and how you bring up those issues and how you can bring it up, gracefully or discreetly, depending on your culture. And I think because we're such a global industry, one of the biggest pieces is how do teams decide and what is their concept of time? right? So when we go from more Western cultures versus Eastern cultures, time is suggestive versus an absolute. How we decide, I've learned this by being an American living in Switzerland. Decisions in Germanic cultures are with a capital D. In America, we're a lowercase d. We can keep judging those decisions in the future. Once I had this realization, I was like, wow, my marriage became a lot easier when I understand that that was a capital D decision versus a lowercase d. And if I have a question, I will ask if it's a capital D or a lowercase d. And he's like, that one can be a lowercase d. But again, you know, I would say, like, from a European versus a North American culture, while we have a lot of overlaps in our cultures and our values, there's some of these pieces where we are a bit further away. And I will say that also, you know, just from a confrontation point of view, you know, German culture have no problem, kind of, because it's not about you, it's about the problem. So you can be really blunt and forward, versus having a German and someone from Great Britain on the same team where they're just dancing around the topic, but they'll never just get to what the problem is, and having to establish those conversations of, like, here's what works culture-wise in those soft skills in this studio and this environment. These are our rules. So everybody can bring your culture and that communication here, and let's go and talk through these things. And that's what we mean by the soft skills, is that observing, implementing these skills becomes so important, in addition to those hard skills that you have, which is your creativity. And to go to your point about, like, where they are in their career, when you're a junior, your hard skills are going to get you in the door. For you to go and get promoted, it's your soft skills that are going to help you rise. And there's, like, the importance of that on that diagram. The soft skills keep going up, and the hard skills, you're like, I have to motivate you to be able to do what I need you to do as a team, versus me having to be the one to press the buttons and to make this move on screen. But those are just some of my observations that I've had with teams. And again, just the cultural differences that I'm like, I would not have thought some of these areas being as wide as they have been.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So also,
Mark,
I mean,
for that.
Yeah, I just saw it recently when working with our more Eastern teams, and just the way of negotiating on a bid within the same group of companies. It's so different. And this growing of soft skills, as you said, this becomes way more important the higher you go into the hierarchy and the job on the org chart, the more this gets more and more important, and the easier you can read this, because of, I do not know if it's emotional intelligence or is it something like this, but the easier you can read the soft skills of, you can improve this and read other people, how their cultural behaviors, how they are working, why they are working the way they do things, the easier is it also to move up in a different position. As you said, it's the hard skills are the door opener, and you have to improve them anyhow. And if you do not know what you have to do, you might consider getting a different job. But
yeah,
you can move forward when exactly training these things, besides, of course, having your hard skills in place. But yeah,
can I say something about the juniors' hard skills? Because many times in the last 20-something years, I've been in a room where it's a junior position, and you know, that's like the golden ticket to the chocolate factory, right? Because they usually are just looking for mids and seniors. They don't really cultivate that as much as they should, they being some very big facilities. So if you are a person and you're trying to get into the door, yes, you have to have the hard skills, but frankly, I think the hard skills and the soft skills get you the job. Because for these really competitive, a lot of people are looking for that job at Disney. Disney's looking at the hard skills, but they're also, at the end of the day, when they make their short list of, well, here's the 5 people that they're all kind of the same skill wise. I can't tell you how many times I've had clients, or when I was in-house at these places, they'd come and say, we don't know who to hire. Like, who would you hire? And I've said to them, who did you enjoy the conversation with more? If they're all bringing the same level of skill to the table, who as a human being do you want to spend 40 to 50 hours a week with? You know, and it was all, they would always say, well, that was, you know, this this woman, Mary Jo. I mean, she knew who we all were. She had done research on everybody that was sitting at the table. You know, and I always say to juniors trying to get their first role, know the history of the company that you're talking with. If you are talking with Tiffany or Christina, look them up on LinkedIn before you speak with them and look at where they went to school and look at their career. There may be something there that's a common denominator, and now you have something to talk about that humanizes the situation. That is an example of showing that you have soft skills. So yes, the hard skills get you in the door, but there's a lot of people that have the hard skills that don't get in the door because they don't have the soft skills.
Yeah.
And having
okay.
one point, having a realistic idea of where your skills are really at. So younger people coming from university might not start immediately as a mid to senior artist.
No.
But they sometimes think they can. And this is really, they can't, exactly. And this is really.
They don't know what they don't know.
How can you be a mid until you've been a junior?
Exactly. But I know this, but you have never done this. No. So, and there are certain, I had awkward talks with people, not from your university, Thomas, so all good. But I had these awkward conversations. So having a realistic idea of what you can do and what you can't do. Love that.
Yeah. Believe me, we really teach our students that they are juniors, and if you would like to become a senior, sometimes you need some years of experience and very, very good soft skills. And for that reason, I really like your sentence, Christina, the hard facts or the hard skills are the door opener, but the soft skills are the key for your further development into the company. So the soft skills will decide if you go the next step in the hierarchy. And for that reason, and my students sometimes really laugh about me because I always say it's okay if you watch a lot of tutorials about 3D and compositing, but it's also a very, very good idea to buy a book about communication, to watch videos about how body language tells you something about how the opponent feels like. Okay, animators need to know this anyway, but all other artists really should take care and think about how can everybody improve his soft skills, because we are spending so much time in our hard skills, but the soft skills, like everybody of you agrees, are the key to go higher in the hierarchy. And for that reason, I sometimes don't understand, because people in our industry are not yet teaching themselves in this area. And this is an advice from my side, and I think you will agree to that. And because the time is running and running, it's but I don't want it to interrupt you, because it's really everything very interesting and great what you say. But I would like to give the listeners the chance to have some questions. And for that, Matthias, I need your help, because I don't see the chat from the audience. So if there is somebody asking or writing a question in the chat, I need your help.
The camera is getting ready. All right. Yeah, so actually I didn't get a question so far, because I guess everybody was like glued to the screen.
Okay, until there will hopefully be some questions. I would like to make Tiffany, Rachel, and Christina please think about a last sentence of you, a last advice from you personally to somebody who's interested in joining our great industry. And if there are any,
take that.
yeah, please.
I would just say, figure out what really turns you on and work your butt off on that. And don't take advice from people who aren't from within the industry. If you are, if you're trying to get in, you know, here's the thing: if you're working on something and you look up and 4 hours has passed, and you think it's been a half an hour, that's probably something you really enjoy doing. And you need to, if you are a student of animation or visual effects and you're learning all of these different disciplines, you need to figure out which two you really are good at and become a master at them. Because we have a lot of jack of all trades, master of none. And for that, you can work at small studios where you wear many hats, but the bigger the production gets, the more compartmentalized these roles become, the more specialized they become. Figure out what really turns you on and put a lot of extra hours into that. And it will show up in the work. It will show up in your reel, your portfolio. It'll show up. And enjoy yourself and ask for mentors. I don't think this is a shock to anyone, but everyone has an ego and likes to have their ego stroked, especially artists. So you can find a mentor out there, not demanding that they speak with you every day. And if you can get that, you can get, you know, insight, that's like gold. So just play well with others, work hard, show up early, ask what you can do when you're done with whatever you're given. People will remember your how you made them feel. And they're going to remember your work because it's going to stand out because you became really good at these few areas that are just like, wow, they'll remember you. And enjoy this, you know, don't always think that it's like, I have to get here. It's not a destination, it's a journey, that old adage. Well, it's the truth. So enjoy, be present, be in the moment, connect with people around you. Enjoy the work, even if you're working on a horrible shot from a horribly written movie. It's okay. Worry about your work being good. You can't control
That's part of the rite of passage as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Enjoy it. Like, you know.
You're like, oh, that's a battle scar that I have. A crappy show, crappy shot. You're like, yes.
Yeah.
I had said to someone recently, I gave a webinar last week about resumes and portfolios, and they had worked on cats. And I said, I'm sorry for you in that experience because it was a show that never ended, even after it was released. But I'm sure you have some great stories from it. I would say that, you know, as a note is about networking. You know, oftentimes we're asked a lot of questions about networking. And when you're starting in the industry, you keep on thinking that you need to network up. Like the supervisor needs to see me, the leads need to see me. When in reality, the longevity of your career and how you're building your network are the people who are sitting to the left and right of you in class, who are sitting to the left and right of you on the floor and working on the shots, because you will together rise in this industry, and it is based on those relationships and where you'll have opportunities and where you will hear about new opportunities. So as opposed to thinking that you need to, you know, step on someone, climb over someone just to get there like a half step faster than the other, it's really, you're going to be raising together. And when you burn those bridges when you're young, trust me, people remember how you were in school. Yep. And so if you were doing that then, and then you came on a show and you're just like, maybe he's changed, maybe they've learned, but there was a little bit of a burn that happened here. And so keep that in mind, that it's not just about who these people are at the studio. It really is about everyone a part of your journey. And with that said, going back to like LinkedIn, I know a lot of artists don't understand LinkedIn. They're like, this is a weird social media. Really, it's like the ultimate database of anything that you want, which blows my mind that I'm like, you know what you can find on that? It's ridiculous. But it's going and connecting with your peers. It's connecting with your professors. It's connecting with people that, you know, you're attending this talk, and you can reach out to each one of us and say, hey, I watched your panel on this talk. We have context, and you can go and build your network and expand from there. And that's such a low hanging fruit to build your network and to kind of allow that network of algorithm in LinkedIn and how people go and get shown up into your world, but just take advantage of it.
Yeah. And please don't put a picture on LinkedIn where you're like going.
Yes, please have it a little bit like, it must not be, we're not working for a bank, but it can be something in between. So stay passionate, have your network together and ask questions. That's what you basically said. That's
Yeah,
really summarized.
it's just a representation of you, and it's like every single producer and recruiter on the planet is on LinkedIn every day.
Yeah,
And
have your LinkedIn updated.
Yeah,
Not like I
Yes,
put it
yes.
online 5 months later. No, now.
Yeah.
It's
So many
free.
people are just on LinkedIn now because they need a job, and they're like, I've totally forgotten about this, and they have like 17 connections, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure you've worked with more than 17 people. But another, you know, interesting LinkedIn piece is that it's estimated between you are 14 to 17 times more likely to have your profile viewed when you have a photo versus when you don't have a photo.
Mhm.
And so, you know, that's such a strong visual indicator of that you might actually have more up-to-date profile being on LinkedIn, having the picture versus not having the picture.
Yeah. Also, I would suggest not scowling on your picture, but that's just me being like, you're like, okay, next.
I think I know which VFX supervisor you're talking about right now.
You do. I'm sure you do.
Okay, thank you really very much. These are great advices. And a question to Matthias: is there any questions so far, or is everybody blown away and filled up with everything
We're
they?
terrified. I'm not sure. It could be one or the other.
I think it's
Yeah,
terrified, but
yeah.
I hope not.
I also I was hesitant to join again the conversation. No, but I mean,
you have three very smart, cool women here. Good panel, my friend. And yeah, I'm sure that some people are pretty terrified, or they're like, "The hell?" Like, we're just here to give advice. I mean, it's like, man, we can save you 5 years of embarrassment and pain if you just are sage advice. Like, we've been there, done that, we've seen it. Yep.
Yeah. So everybody can connect to you via LinkedIn. Are there any next upcoming events you will join that maybe the people can meet you in personal, as a real human and not only online?
Well, I'm always at that conference with at least 2 to 3 per year. So for those of you in Germany, I'm always at FMX. I jokingly say that, like, I've been there for the last 8 years, and then I get the Golden Sparkle Award. And then for myself, Annecy, and then I always alternate between the US events. So it kind of depends on what I have going on personally.
Okay.
Yeah. And for me, I am not going to be at CTN this year in LA. I live between Seattle and LA, so I'm kind of like between the two. But any events that I'm going to be at, it'll be on our website. And yeah, I don't know if there's any, any questions out there from anybody, but you can always email my company at talent@RochelleLewis. Go to the website, and either me or one of my team members will come back to you with an answer if we can help you. And then we can get you into our database as well, so that when we do have roles that you might be a fit for, you'll hear from us.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll also be at FMX all the time since many years.
I need to go to FMX. I mean, it's a long way for me, ladies.
Now you have
Yeah.
to do it next year. We meet there. Trickster is actually next year's 25 years, so we're celebrating. So that's a reason to drop by.
Matthias and I are going to coordinate train schedules so that we can leave out of Zurich and go up.
Now it all makes sense.
To the party.
We're just planning, but you're of
Free
course all
drinks.
invited to the party, definitely. And other than that, I'm just in Estonia attending the film festival here, and next week back in Berlin there also. So
I think I have
always
a
available via LinkedIn.
Swiss animator with a short in the Estonia project.
Here you
I'll
go.
have
Let
to.
me know. So we have tomorrow like this. I think
I'll double check. She's been going and having her film shown around a whole bunch. So we had an office space here in Zurich, so that's why she's been.
Yes, please let me know. So this would be really interesting. I just arrived here in the hotel. That's why I have this weird background.
Okay, perfect. Great. So thanks again. It was really a pleasure and an honor to have you here in this panel. Thank you very much. I hope all listeners have learned something and really take the chance to get in contact with you, because contact is nearly everything in this business. If nobody knows you and if you know nobody, there will nothing happen. So thanks again, and I will hand over to Matthias to go to the final words. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody also. That's been amazing. And actually there was just a comment coming in the last second from Vicky, and she said she just wants to say that this panel has been super insightful, and I definitely agree. And yeah, I mean, I could also go on, and I made a couple of notes on all of those aspects. But yeah, no, I think by far the most, or all of the most important things have been said. And so I'm going to spare you an additional rant on those things. Now these things, all the topics are incredibly important, going from mental health to also all the topics about what does it mean to be a good artist, or what does it mean to be a good human being in general. Also, I think they're really important, and with the times, with these hard times, with all the experiences we've had with the pandemic, and also having known people that struggle with all of those things, and also with especially also the having to be online, having social media and all of those echo chambers pounding on your character over and over and over again. I think society in general really needs a little bit more of a wake-up call of yeah, what, for example, the topic of what are soft skills, what does this mean? And so taking all of those topics together and reflecting on them as a boss, as having been an artist, and being interested in psychology and the creative industries in general as a whole, is actually kind of brings me back to the reason why we are actually organizing the whole conference here. And this is also one of the main reasons why there is this why one of the foundational aspects of the 3D Environment Conference is actually to make it artist-centric, so that we have an industry-agnostic dialogue or discourse about 3D in general, and let's say creativity. I mean, ICE, right? Inspiration, creativity, and emotion, but to have this whole foundation about keeping it human, keeping it real, and yeah, and this is, I think, something that is quite unique in this conference, because we can talk a lot about creativity and technology, and in the end, but yeah, but in the end, it all boils down to the human factor. Where do we want to go as individuals, but also where do we want to go as a society and as humanity? And with that said, I do believe also, especially this panel now, and as a culmination of this second ICE conference for 2023, I think this was the perfect discussion to wrap these things up. And I really hope that this kind of proves once again for the fourth time that there is a reason for the ICE conference to exist and hopefully to flourish also in future. So I would say let's move on with the next couple of slides and slowly wrap things up. So this was it. And so the next things, the videos of hopefully all of the presentations will be online very soon. So for those that have been tuning in late or missed the day, we got you covered. Then if there are any more questions either for us or the panelists and so on, please reach out. Then if you would like to become a speaker next time, if you have an interesting topic on any of the 3D related or 3D environment related topics, please reach out. The same thing also if you would like to become a media partner to help spread the word. Then also, please don't forget to come to our Discord channel, and slowly but slowly we're building the community member by member. And again, we're or in general, like with everything in life, I'm playing the long game. So it might take some time, but we're stepping in the right direction. Cool. Again, conference email or email is conference@ice.art. So in general, one last very big thank you to Urban, my company, thank you, as being the sponsor. Then also to all of the media partners again, FMX, VS, the View Conference, MDH, IGDA, Ideal Spaces, AT Level, the Modeling Hub on YouTube, and GDBay for spreading the message, and also the rest of the ICE team in the background, especially Thomas, and then also Robert and Andreea. And last but not least, everybody in the audience and all of the speakers, thank you so much. Yeah, this was it. This was the end. I am sad, but it will continue. Most probably, I'm going to regroup again, obviously with Thomas. We might actually also reach out to all attendees and the speakers and panelists to get some feedback on what we can do better next time, because we're just trying to be humble, right? And try to make a better job next time. And yeah, with that said, I would say let's call it a day. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, and a huge thank to you, Matthias, because you are the person spending really the most time for making this conference possible, and that's very good, very positive, and very motivating. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. All right, then have a nice rest of the day and see you probably in a couple of months. All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.